I was gluing up a lac on a 14-year-old girl's forehead. Anyone who has used Dermabond before knows that stuff can be runny and bonds very quickly. I glued my glove to her face. Her mom was in the room, and I had to turn to her and say, "I am sorry, I've just glued my glove to her face." I missed a gunshot wound once. A guy was dumped off at the covered in blood after a rap concert. We were all focused on a gunshot wound with an arterial bleed that was distracting. The nurse placed the blood pressure cuff over the gunshot wound on the arm. We all missed it because the blood pressure cuff slowed the bleeding. I was doing the secondary assessment when we rolled the patient, and I still missed it. We didn't find it till the chest X-ray. The bullet came of rest in the posterior portion of the thoracic wall without significant trauma to major organs. The patient lived, but I still feel like I fucked up big time. Pathologist here. Biggest mistake I ever made was cutting myself during an autopsy on an HIV patient. Lucky for me, I did not acquire the virus, so everything had a happy ending. For me, anyway. That guy was still dead. I'm a nurse, but I was working in the when a guy came in for a scratch on his neck and, feeling drowsy. We start the usual workups and this dude's blood pressure tanked. We scrambled, but he was dead within 10 minutes of walking through the door. Turns out the scratch was an exit wound of a .22 caliber rifle round. The guy didn't even know he'd been shot. When the coroner's report came back, we found that he'd been shot in the leg and the bullet tracked through his torso, shredding everything in between. There was really nothing we could have done, but that was a serious, "what the fuck just happened" moment. This thread is pretty depressing, so I'll lighten it up a bit. A few months ago, I accidentally ran a creatinine test on a patient when a comp metabolic wasn't ordered. It turns out that the guy was in renal failure, and no one knew. He was about to go in for surgery. I believe it was a bypass, but could be wrong, but I got the results in time to stop them from putting him under. Shit could have been messy. I'm glad I screwed up, and I'm sure he has no idea that he could have died. My brother is a surgeon, and during part of his residency, he had to work in the pediatric unit. He was working with 2 newborns. One was getting much better and fighting for life. He was going to make it just fine. The other baby was hours from death. He wasn't going to make it. My brother was in charge of informing the families. My brother realized about 15 minutes later that he had mixed up the families. He told the family with the healthy baby that their baby wasn't going to make it. And he told the family with the dying baby that their baby was going to be just fine. He then had to go back out to the families and explain the situation to them. How devastating, to be given a glimmer of hope and have it ripped away from you not even an hour later. That was most upset I've heard my brother. He felt destroyed, not me, but my mom. She just retired as an OB/GYN, and she told me about a time early on in her career when, while not a real medical mistake, she still almost ruined the operation. She was performing a C-section, I think, and she dropped her scalpel on the floor. Before she could think, she blurted out, "Oh shit," as a reaction. The mother, thinking something was wrong with the baby, started panicking. It took a team of nurses, the husband, and the mother of the patient to calm her down. Farmed here. Couple different quick stories. Heard of a pharmacist who filled a fentanyl patch incorrectly and the dose was so high that the patient went into severe respiratory depression and died. They're still practicing. Worked with another pharmacist back in the mid-2000s when I was still a tech who filled a script for Prozac solution. Concentrated it is 20 mg per milliliter. Average adult dose is 20 mg. Instead of 1 milliliter once daily, he filled it for 1 teaspoonful, 5 milliliters. The child got serotonin syndrome and almost died. He is no longer working to my knowledge. My grandmother has had diabetes for about 20 years, and takes a handful of meds to help control it. About 10 years ago, she developed a persistent cough. It wasn't bad. She said it felt like a constant tickle in the back of her throat. She went to her doctor to find out what was going on, and he ordered a battery of tests concerned that she was developing pneumonia, lung cancer, etc. All the tests came back negative, so he prescribed a cocktail of pills to help combat it. Over the span of 5 years, she had tried about 35 different meds and none helped. One day when she went it for a routine checkup, her normal doc was out and she saw one of the on-call residents. He looked at the barrage of pills she was on and asked why. When she explained, he replied, "Oh, the cough is a side effect of this one particular drug you're on to regulate your insulin." If we change you to this other one, it will go away. I'm a nurse. I've given an anticoagulant, blood thinner, to the wrong patient. Over the next day his red blood count dropped. He ended up in ICU. Dentist here. I was performing a simple extraction and preparing for the case when I didn't realize that I had the X-ray flipped the wrong way the whole time. I was viewing the film backwards, and pulled out the wrong tooth. When I realized my mistake I started freaking out, only to find out that by some dumb luck, the tooth I extracted had to go as well. For the record, this happened in dental school, so safe to say it was a learning experience. It was my first and very last time to make that mistake. And yes, we are doctors. As an ICU nurse, I've seen the decisions of some doctors result in death. Families oftentimes don't know, but it happens more than you'd think. It usually happens on very sick patients that ultimately would have died within 6 months or so anyway, though. Procedural-wise, I have seen a physician kill a patient by puncturing their heart while placing a pleural chest tube. It was basically a freak thing, as apparently the patient had recently had cardiothoracic surgery and the heart adhered within the cavity at an odd position. I'll never forget the look on his face when he came to the realization of what had happened. You rarely see people accidentally kill someone in such a direct way. Heartbreaking. Patient here. A doctor tried to put an Alizarov fixator on me, for limb lengthening, without proper knowledge or experience. He damaged the growth cartilage, dislodged my fibula and destroyed my ankle. I had to get 20 more surgeries to fix his error. The initial procedure was something that another experienced doctor would have done in 2 minor surgeries over the course of 6 months. I was 2 years old when he botched the surgery, 18 when I finally finished the reconstructions.